All right, Kiss Army, welcome to the KissFAQ Podcast. Thank you for giving us your time today and letting us into your head. I hope we don't do any damage. We hope that you enjoy. Welcome to episode 353 of the KissFAQ Podcast. I'm your host, Julian Gill. Today I'm joined by Marcus Almighty Mark,
Greetings.
69th Blizzard Ken,
Hey.
and St. Louis Kiss Lonnie. What's up? Gentlemen, been a couple of weeks since we last spoke about Kiss. Thank you to everyone who's tuned in to the Velvet Revolver Contraband episode that we put up last week. That was fun to talk about that band. We are still, we're coming up with some ideas for some fan votes, and Mark's going to be selecting the next album that we talk about on that show. At least I think that's how it ended last episode, right?
Yes, it did.
Okay,
Yep.
I'm halfway there. All right, so check that episode out. What else do we have news-wise? Paul Stanley back in the studio with Soul Station. What on earth could he be doing, and how excited are you for that, Mark?
I didn't even know he went back in, so this is first word that I've heard of it. I've been kind of tied up with my own things of late, so I haven't been on too much. But, hey, if he's back with Soul Station, I probably won't be that excited about it, but, you never know. You never know what he'll come up with. Who knows? Maybe it'll be something that I might like this time.
Okay. Lonnie?
It's fine. I don't know. I don't get it, I guess. We talked about the album, and I listened to it, in preparation for the show, but I don't think I've listened to it since we discussed it on the show, So if he wants to do more of that,
You won't listen to it either.
No, I haven't been driving around. I go, ooh, you know what I want to listen to while I'm driving? There's a little Soul Station. No, it hasn't come up. So, if that's what, I don't know. It's fine. Just like I said on the episode, it's fine, but it's not.
I know what you want to say, Lonnie. You want to say, if that's what makes him happy, then you're happy for him.
Sure. If that's what he wants to do, fine. He's made it abundantly clear he's not interested in doing another Kiss record on multiple occasions. So if that's what you want to do, if that's what makes you happy, it's fine.
Ken?
Yeah, I saw that. I think my thinking is he's maybe recording they talked about piano. I think more of a unplugged kind of performance stripped down version, right, of one of the songs that is probably already on his record for something, maybe for some performance somewhere or to show as a video somewhere. I don't know. That's just my guess. I could be way off. I don't think they're recording another Soul Station album.
Some kind of bonus track.
I just almost think that there's just going to be one Soul Station album. But you never know. I guess it's all, if Paul wants to do it, I'm sure he'll do it. So yeah, whatever. That's fine. He's in the studio. If you're in the studio, just tell us what you're doing. If you're gonna just put it out there, I'd be more in. If he was gonna do a Kiss one, if they were in the studios, like we're in the studios, Kiss, like now, well, okay, what is it? But for Soul Station, I'm like Lonnie, fine, whatever.
Fine. No,
Doesn't move the needle for me at all.
It's got to be the angry one. Fine, then.
It doesn't pique my interest.
What if he was back in the studio with Soul Station, re-recording some of his Kiss songs in the R&B flavor that they were supposed to be heard the first time around? Lonnie wins that answer right there.
Blasphemy.
Blasphemy. There you go. All right, so let's move on to the other news item of the day. And just announced Kiss are going to be returning to the stage June the 11th, following the screening of their new A&E documentary biography, KISStory, at the Tribeca Festival. They're going to hit the stage. So that's New York, of course. And, let's talk about biography, KISStory. What are your guys' thoughts on that? You've seen a little bit of the blurb. There was a fake one going around that had a former Kiss manager Doc McGee. That is not what is in the actual press release. If you go over to Universal, with the band's manager Doc McGee, producer Bob Ezrin, that plays nicely on the recent photos of Paul and Bob back together again. Mark, start with you. What are your thoughts on this biography and some of the tweets that have been shared? Gene Simmons, of course, making it very clear that some people had been invited and had declined.
Well, I mean, I'm a fan of the A&E biographies. I've seen quite a few of them before, not just musicians, but like certain actors and stuff like that too. So I think A&E on the whole does a pretty good job of those kinds of biographies. But the problem with this, I think, is that because we know so much about Kiss and we've gone in so deep into some of these things, will they put in stuff that we'll be surprised about, or will it be just more of the same stuff that we already know? Like, that's the thing I'm just kind of wondering about. And I mean, how much time do they have to tell us their story? I mean, it's not going to be a 5-hour long program. It's going to be maybe like an hour and a half, maybe.
No, it is a 4-hour documentary.
Oh, really?
In
okay.
2 parts that is going to air on June the 27th and June the 28th. So 4 hours, Mark, which in America means probably 3 hours and an hour of commercials.
Okay, so then that makes it a little bit better because they have more time in which to portray what they want to show. And I think that if they have enough decent information at their hands, and Paul and Gene cooperate and give us some decent information as well, then I think it could be very good. I mean, like I said before, I like the A&E biographies, but the problem with this one compared to all the other ones is that I know limited things about these other things that I've watched. So to me, all of it is pretty much new information. If I watch about an actor or I watch about somebody else, then it's stuff I might not know, and it's like, oh, this is great. I learned so much. But with Kiss, you already know a lot of stuff. How much will I know that's new from this? I'm curious.
Yeah, so the press release goes on to, and again, this is just from Universal's site, paraphrasing the press release, which I haven't yet seen. Features interviews with Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons, as well as current members Tommy Thayer and Eric Singer. Based on a press release, it's unclear if former but founding members Ace Frehley and Peter Criss were interviewed for the film at the time of writing. And Gene today tweeted, when someone asked whether they were going to be in it, he said, regarding your text, step 1, you do the decent thing and invite everyone to be in the documentary. Step 2, they decline to be in the documentary, so you respectfully move on and do it anyway. See? Lonnie?
As far as learning anything, I really don't think I'm going to gain any knowledge or any kind of insight that I haven't heard about. I think maybe the casual Kiss fan, may, I didn't know the certain aspects of their history or that this happened. As far as like the hardcore fan goes, I'm more interested to see how it's portrayed more than anything else. More so than gaining any knowledge of it. What already concerns me is what I think is going to happen is that I think they're really going to gloss over 1983 to 1996. I think it's going to get maybe 15 minutes at best. I would say. Remember that VH1 special they did, like Beyond the Makeup or whatever it was, like in 01. And they really detailed the history of the band and really just glossed over the 80s, and then boom, here we are, we arrive in 1996. And I have a strong feeling and suspicion that the same type of treatment is going to be placed on the non-makeup era, which I think is a shame because we sing the praises of the non-makeup era on this show all the time. I mean, Julian and Mark love Asylum. I love Revenge. They're some of our favorite albums are those non-makeup albums. And Bruce Kulick's era in the band just gets overlooked, and I really think that's a shame. And I have a strong suspicion that the same is going to be done again. And then my other reservation too is just how Ace and Peter are going to be portrayed. And we know how Ace and Peter are going to be portrayed, how they were the villains and Gene and Paul were just the saviors. And it's the same. It's a tired story at this point because we've seen that portrayal over and over and over again. and I think that that's the version of the story we're gonna get thrown at not only us, but at the casual Kiss fan and at the general public who just happens to see that it's on TV.
But you know what? The thing that's going to really bother me about that, if they gloss over the 80s thing, is that they're going to skip over Eric Carr, which I think is an important part of the Kiss history. You know,
but he's got a competing documentary coming out that's been announced and being worked on. So they may feel that, oh, we can save our screen time for more important matters since he's going to get, you know, all of that on his own you know, later on.
Really?
I still think it's just gonna be glossed over.
Well, yeah, okay, yeah,
it's just so, but it doesn't change the fact that it's a shame it's gonna get glossed over.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I will be angry if they call Peter and Ace drug addicts, you know, and continue to harp on about things that they haven't done in many years. I think I would like to hear Paul, Stanley, and Gene say something to the effect of Ace had become a problem in such and such, and we're really proud that he's still alive and with us, and he's, you know, fighting his demons. I would love for them to say something positive, you know, and not to say, just to bring it up flippantly again, as they always seem to, unfortunately.
You know, and I'd really like to see, like, especially when they're talking about the 70s, talk about how integral those two were in creating that Kiss sound, creating what the band was. And I really hope that they get the respect they deserve, especially when they're talking about the 70s more than anything else. How, you know, Gene and Paul had this vision for the band, and they brought these two guys in who were the founding members, and they completed that vision and were everything that they wanted it to be. And were a huge part in the success of the band. I hope that they at least get that kind of credit in the documentary.
Do you agree, Ken?
I agree. I hope they get that right. The thing is, originally when this was announced, it was announced as a 2-hour thing. So it had grown in a year from 2 hours to 4 hours, which is interesting. So maybe, you know, that leaves me hopeful that they won't totally gloss over the 80s and kind of go through the Vinnie Vincent, you know, that stuff that happened with him, Mark St. John, Bruce Kulick, the shuffling of guitarists, and then the chasing of trends and stuff like that. I think, yeah, the 80s will be less than the 70s. I'm wondering how much they're going to put into what happens between 2000, say 4 or whatever, and now. How much are they going to really put in there? I would think it wouldn't be a whole lot, except for about the couple albums and their end of the road. I'm sure they're going to focus on that, obviously. Yeah. I'm hopeful that they.
Well, maybe Eric goes missing again, and they decide to do a show in Australia.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, that one. Yeah. So I'm hopeful. You know, like we all are, hopeful that we get some things we don't know, which is probably not likely. But I guess, like, you know, film footage that we haven't seen. That stuff would
That's
be
my
very
biggest hope,
like,
Ken.
It's like, oh, I've never seen that before, you know, stuff like that. Behind the scenes kind of stuff like that. I just don't want it to be the, you know, Paul and Gene show, and it's just all their stories from their books. Wow. I know they originally said that the writers or whoever, producers, were pulling from all 4 books. So maybe they'll have Gene saving, you know, drowning Ace or whatever. And stuff like that. It would be interesting, you know, that they'd mention anything like that too. So we'll see.
Yeah.
So it's being produced by Leslie Greff, or Greff. I butchered that. Who did produce Family Jewels? So I think there's a certain amount of familiarity in there. Directed by DJ Viola. You know, I'm hopeful. that we're going to get some eye candy in there. You know, I'm concerned that, you know, obviously people like Stephen Cornell are persona non grata really now. I'm not even sure if he's out of jail, whether he's allowed to use technology to get that story. Marty Cohen can tell the story as well since he was there, but, you know, what's the relationship like for the formation? I mean, I've been writing something for a project about that era, and it would be so great to see that era put together properly about Paul and his aura, and, you know, coming together with Gene, and maybe that'll be something that can be better portrayed in the biopic that's also being talked about at the same time. That one's been picked up. Is that for Netflix, I think, or Amazon Prime?
Netflix. It was Netflix.
Yeah, can't remember which, but, you know, one of the big topics around that is Motley Crue, when they did The Dirt, recorded new songs. Should Kiss make a point to either dust off some old demos, tart them up, you know, slap a fresh coat of paint on, you know, take a Paul vocal from well, didn't they do that before? They just can't leave Paul vocals alone. And you start thinking about You Wanted the Best in 97. I think there are ways that they could do it, but there should be new music in some form on both of these, whether in the documentary as incidental background music. There's Queen for a Day playing, you know, while they're talking about the recording of Rock and Roll Over, and you don't necessarily know it because it's just incidental music. But again, the key thing is I don't think there's a whole lot of new stuff to learn, but Paul Stanley keeps surprising me with some of the stuff he pulls out of his closet, you know, whether it's photographs we've never seen before, whether it's reel-to-reels from Wicked Lester that we've never heard of. So I think as much as any of us say, well, I'm not going to learn anything new, I think they have a propensity in their dotages of proving us wrong, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when they showed that time when he pulled out that little cassette tape of that stuff that he had in the closet there, I mean, that was surprising. I don't think anybody expected to see that. So, you know, like you said, you never know, right? I mean, and just my last comment about this whole bio thing, the A&E thing, is that, you know, it's going to be mainly, though, made to have Paul and Gene look great. You know what I mean? And it's going to be also, of course, used to help promote the ending of this whole End of the Road tour. It's going to, I have a feeling a great deal of that will be focused on that as well, because, you know, they're going to be wanting to promote this tour again to get it back up and rolling. So I have a feeling that's going to be big on that as well.
Yep. Any last thoughts, Lonnie, Ken, on Biopic or whatnot? Do you want them to be re-recording some Madonna hits?
Surprise me with something. Surprise me with some footage. I'm with you. I would love to see some kind of live footage or something that just to shock the hell out of us that we'd never seen before. Or, you know, as far as recording music for it, I would love to see it. I don't see it happening, but as far as the documentary goes, you know, show me some footage, some rare stuff, some early stuff that we had never seen before, that would just like blow the casual fan watching isn't going to know. Okay, well, there's some footage of them from the 70s. Okay, that's cool, but like the hardcore fan watching it would just like fall off their couch watching it. You know, that'd be something.
Yeah, and if they have Bob Ezrin back in the picture, it'd be really cool if they could be doing something similar to, you know, what happened during Odyssey era, you know, of playing demos and having Gene and Paul comment on them. You know, oh, I remember that one, you know, like was happening, you know, during that interview would be very cool to kind of have that kind of dynamic going, you know, playing some of these songs. Hey, Gene, you remember this, you know, from the Magna Graphic 1975 demos that was atrocious, you know, playing it. No, I don't remember that. Is that me? You know, Bob Ezrin then, you know, coming in and saying, yeah, I reviewed all that crap. We managed to get one song out of that. You know, just those sorts of things would be very interesting to have the audio cues of what Bob, or a producer, it could be Eddie Kramer for that matter, he's still around, you know, listening to a demo and talking about that. I'd love to see, and maybe it's been done and I just can't remember it, you know, play Eddie Kramer some of the 73 demo, you know, and have him talking about that again. You know, that sort of shit would really make me giggle. That's all I care about at this point.
Yes.
I don't need to hear them narrating their books or the stories that we've heard before. I'd love to see them doing a little bit more of a documentary that actually talks about the music. And that's where if Peter and Ace have decided not to be involved, you can't break down those guitar parts. What were you thinking? When you played that, it was just the first, curly, or Peter, you're playing a triplet, and you're doing this, and maybe he can't express it, but he could say what he was trying to do or where it was coming from. Was it Beatles? Was it Krupa? Was it something else? That kind of stuff would really
That'd be awesome.
Be much more interesting than a narrative of the popular agenda. Sorry, I'm monologuing. Let's get into some of the other topics today. We didn't really plan out this show very succinctly. So it's just some random topics, some of which have been on the board, one of which was on the board, but it was also a 3 Sides episode recently, which didn't know until after the fact. But you know what? Hey, go watch the 3 Sides episode on it as well. And you'll probably, I didn't see how long their show was, so maybe it's 2 hours of what we'll cover in 10 minutes. So, Ken, you started out with a really good one, and it was 45 years ago, 1976. Was it Kiss's best year with Destroyer and Rock and Roll Over, plus the whole package of costumes, energy, and stage shows? Lonnie, I'll start with you on Ken's topic.
I think you can make a strong argument for that, for sure. I mean, two of their better albums, some people's favorite albums. Some people might label those albums their top 2 albums. A lot of old school Kiss fans would label those 2 albums their favorite albums, their entry point in the Kiss. Stage show with the Destroyer tour, those iconic costumes from Destroyer and Rock and Roll Over. You could definitely make that argument that was Kiss at their peak, and before crack started to show. Late Love Gun, maybe. I don't even know if cracks really started to show. I think they were still clicking on all cylinders during Love Gun and Alive 2, but I think it's a 1 and a 1A actually, if you're gonna consider 76 or 77 as their best years with Love Gun and Alive 2. The stage show's even bigger for Love Gun and Alive 2. Those costumes may be even cooler for Love Gun and Alive 2 in 77, but you can definitely make the argument that it's Kiss at their prime before some cracks in the foundation started to show as far as ego and drugs and alcohol or whatever vice that whatever vice that the original member was addicted to, whether it was ego and money or drugs or whatever. But I think 76, I definitely think you can make that argument that it was them at their pinnacle before things started to erode.
Ken, I deliberately didn't go to you first, so because I almost think I know what you're going to say. What is your take on that? Is it 76 or is it 76, 77 because of the crossover, and then 77, 78 because of the crossover there?
Right, 77, 78. Yeah, well, yeah, 40. I mean, I picked the year, 45 years ago, because I was thinking, what's going on about 45 years ago. And that was, I thought, okay, 76. And I started thinking, shoot, that was a pretty good year. They released Destroyer, has a bunch of great songs on there. And then Rock and Roll Over, which is my favorite Kiss album. And then the costumes at that time were the real change from, up to Alive. Live were pretty good, but then they got it was really superhero more kind of stuff, and Gene's armor and so on was just fantastic. So they did that, and then they were still hungry, even though at that time, I think the famous success was starting to really come in at that time, but it didn't overtake them like I think it started probably in 77, 78, where it kind of was going to their heads, and things like that. Though they were still, pretty on top of the world in 77, obviously. So yeah, so I was thinking, 76 may have been their peak as far as music performance, because Love Gun's a good album, but it's not as good as Rock and Roll Over. I think it's a little dip. So I think that was their peak year. Two great albums, good stage show. Yeah, it wasn't the Love Gun stage show. Yeah, that would have been even better. But their energy and their hunger, I think, was still there, and they were exciting, and the music was good. So I thought, yeah, that's probably their peak, in my opinion.
Now, Mark, knowing your propensity to not be in favor of the first of those albums from 1976, what is your take on it?
This might surprise you, but I have to agree. I think 76 might be their peak era. I mean, look, everybody knows well what I think of Destroyer, but there's no question that their costumes and the kind of stage show that they started doing live at that point went up significantly, for sure, And I also think that Rock and Roll Over, which is my favorite album as well from the Kiss catalog, I definitely think that at that point they were really gelled well at that point. I mean, you got to remember, Destroyer, for as much as we say it's such a great album now, if you go back to the books and read it, that album came out, they expected huge things from it, and it stalled for a long time, that record. It wasn't the big home run that everybody now, the years later says it is, because back then, it almost bombed on them. If they didn't have Beth take off for them, then that record probably wouldn't have sold nowhere near as well as it did. So, I think at that point, they still had that drive and energy for their live shows to kind of, bring in more and more people. They wanted to still prove themselves, because, that record didn't prove anything yet. It was Rock and Roll Over where things started to level, off, and they were starting to sell, good amounts of albums and stuff like that. And in that era, that whole Rock and Roll Over era, it's one of my favorite ones. Like, some of my favorite live boots are from that tour. And one of my favorite ones, period, is the Japanese one. I remember when I had my Black Diamond book that came out years and years ago. I remember that when I flipped through it, they were talking about this infamous Japanese show, because I didn't have any of these bootlegs yet at that point when I had the book. And they're saying that this Kiss show you have to see, because they're wearing Destroyer costumes, playing music from Rock and Roll Over, but they have the new Love Gun stage already in use at this point. So it's like 3 albums merged into one kind of idea on there. So I was like, wow, I got to see this. So of course, when I finally went to conventions and stuff, that was one of the first ones I picked up. And that show, in my opinion, delivers very well. Like, they play so well on that show. I've always been a big fan of that show. So I definitely agree that 76 is a big year for the band. I mean, sure, 77 they had the bigger tour, as far as like the shows and stuff like that. With Love Gun, like, the stage show looked a lot bigger, and but I think at that point they were getting comfortable with the fact that they were now big stars. I think that point from Destroyer over to Rock and Roll Over, they were getting comfortable, but they still weren't 100% yet, like they said. Because even in the interview, there was that interview that Gene and them did in some hotel room, where they were quick to downplay Destroyer and saying that they're going back in and doing a new record that's all really hard. Hard rocking and stuff like that. So you can tell even back then they weren't comfortable yet with, that they were on firm ground successfully. So it's an interesting period, but I think it's still probably their peak time.
Yeah, they were scared. They weren't willing to be like Alice Cooper, who progressed with Bob through several albums of growth and development, because he went straight in with them and basically took them from 1 album to 5 albums ahead in one shot. So he had already done that with Alice, and he already knew what he wanted to do with the band. So I think it is 76 without a doubt. because that was the first time they really had money to put into a stage show as well with Destroyer. Once Glickman Marks comes into the picture and there's money and they build this massive set with tumble down walls, with the electric, the lightning machine, the trees and the Frankenstein stuff, the turrets and everything, it was really the first time they had the opportunity to go over the top and to be as big in their heads as they were going to be on stage. We have the money to build it. Whatever we can dream, we can do. So there was a lot of loans being taken probably early on to put that Destroyer tour together, because they'd come back from Canada April, where they'd basically wrapped up the Alive tour cycle and all the postponed dates and hybrid. But then you have that transforming into Rock and Roll Over, which is just stunning. I mean, it really is yin and yang. It's, they're at their most artistic, being taken as far as Kiss could really go creatively with Bob, and then going back to the very best they could do in their true form. So the best of both worlds. And then as one of you said, I think Mark, it was you said it, they get to the end of the Rock and Roll Over tour and you get Love Gun stage coming in for the Japan. So it is stunning. 77, 78, Love Gun, is their draw the line in some ways for me. There's so many parallels between those two albums and the times at which they're taking place. It's too polished. But the stuff off Alive 2, the studio stuff does kind of also do a similar sort of thing, as was the case with Destroyer and Rock and Roll Over, that it was a tougher sounding version of very similar material on Love Gun. And then, of course, you take the sound of all the live stuff on that album as well. But 76, without a doubt, the energy, they were fresh, they were still clean, they were still hungry. They had only just had a taste. They had not gotten fat and lazy Hollywood shopping disco, snorting everything under the sun and drinking champagne. So, yeah, wow. I want to see some really good footage of stages from Destroyer. I hope there's something in the documentary that we actually get to see a lot of that. And you can see it in some of the videos if you pay attention. But I've just loved to really get a good shot of that. All right, this is the topic that came from Three Sides. Ken, you mentioned it. Pick Kiss's last great album, last good album, and first bad album. So thank you, Three Sides, for that topic. Ken, let's start with you.
Yes. So it was, I know it was on Three Sides, and I don't know if it originally came from there, but I know it was on our board too. So I said, it's a pretty good topic.
Nothing's original in rock and roll.
Yeah. All right. So, yeah. And one thing I know is I did listen to some of that and that Three Sides, and what really doesn't make sense to me is Mark Caccini, he picked as his last great album for Kiss was Monster. And to me, I'm like, how could anyone say Monster is the last great Kiss album? And I thought, he's just, I think, sold out to, Gene and Paul and because it doesn't make.
There's really going to be a Voice of Reason Mark Caccini death match coming up. Nice.
I just think he sold out.
Come on, boys, stoke the fires.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, how could that be the last great Kiss? I mean, I think of, okay, it's good. That one for me is just good. I know it's all perception, whatever, but he's been a Kiss fan since way back, and I just can't believe you could really compare that to some of the other earlier albums going back in years, and call it great. I think it's a good album. Very good is not even on here, so it's not even very good in my opinion. There's some very good songs on it, but no. Just for picking that, I think that's like a dishonorable discharge from the Kiss Army. So anyway,
now tell us how you really feel. No need to.
Well, All right, so last great Kiss album. In my opinion, last great Kiss album, and this is kind of tough. I almost went with what I thought Lonnie would choose, which he probably will. But I went a little farther back. I went back to Lick It Up.
Really?
I went to Lick It Up as the last great Kiss album. I think of Revenge as very good, not just good, but very good. So there's another kind of area there in between great and good. I think very good Revenge. So I just like Look It Up better. I don't know. It just is for me. It's always been that way. So that's my last great Kiss album. Do you
Okay, I want to go around. Let's do our last. Let's start with last great album, and then we can go to last good and first bad. Then we, break things up a little bit. Lonnie, let's go to your last great Kiss album.
Well, Ken called my shot. In my opinion, the last great Kiss album is Revenge. I'm with Ken. I don't see how you can put anything that came after that in the vein of greatness. I don't see how you can put Carnival or Psycho Circus or Sonic Boom or Monster and trumpet them as being great Kiss albums. I think a great Kiss album needs to have a certain, it has a certain standard for me, and those albums do not reach it. So for me, Revenge does. But anything after that, unfortunately, I wish I could sit here and say, yeah, something that was released after 1992 is a great Kiss album, but I can't.
And you won't. And that's okay.
And
Okay, Mark.
Well, the last great Kiss album, I think, and it's the same kind of thinking as you guys are saying. There's no way in hell anything past. Let's put it this way: those last two, Sonic Boom and Monster, can't be in the same category. I mean, they're not anywhere near that level. But for me, my favorite, or the last great album that they did, is Asylum. I think that to me is the record that I still think to this day I can go back to and listen to beginning to end, top to bottom, always have a smile on my face. I can put it in the car, listen to it, love it. There's a reason why it's my favorite non-makeup Kiss album, and it's my number 3 Kiss album overall in the grand scheme of my big list of Kiss albums. So I definitely think that album is the last great album they did, but I also think that album kind of went to Paul's head a bit. I think that's because it is so good that he thought that he could produce everything from there on in and it'd be so as good as that, but I don't think he ever equaled that production job.
All right, everyone's probably wondering, is Julian going to agree with Lonnie or is Julian going to agree with Mark?
Probably Mark.
No, I'm actually I'm agreeing with Lonnie. Revenge is definitely the last great album. As much as I love Asylum and it's important to me, as I always say, there's no way in hell Sonic Boom and Monster get into the equation. They were very, very good efforts, but the production ruins what is otherwise some very good material. But there are too many misses on both of them for them to qualify. Psycho Circus, there again, some very good material on the album, fantastic production. I've gotten over the hump about the players on it because it is what it is. But in terms of overall what they were trying to do and what they accomplished, Revenge is a great album. It's a great sounding album. A lot of effort went into it, a lot of attention to detail. So no matter how much I would like to annoy Lonnie, I have to agree with him. And maybe that annoys him. All right, Lonnie, you win that round, getting 2 votes for Revenge. There we go. All right, the last good Kiss album. Good is such an open-ended, so vacuous, pointless. Mark, let's start with good. The last, it was okay.
Okay is such a broad, generalized term. I mean, you could pick pretty much anything that's not bad. That's how you kind of look at it. It's good, But, if I'm going to mention a record, then it kind of falls into 2 kind of categories. which is like, old stuff or newer stuff. Now, again, I don't count those two records at all in this, even in good, to be honest with you. But I think it would be, and it narrowed down really to two albums, and that's Dress to Kill. I had as a good album, and I also put down as well Dynasty. I thought was a good album, but for me, I think I think Dynasty is going to be the one I'm going to pick. I think it's a good album. It definitely has good memories for me. Like I said, it always gives me this kind of feeling of New York City when I hear it. It's a good album, but I don't think it's as good as Asylum, and I don't think it's as good as some of their other ones. But I think it's a pretty good album.
So, I hang on a second, because is it their last good album? Is that the question?
No, I think it's just pick a good album. I think that's what you said.
No,
right?
it's the last
good album. So there's
the
been,
last good album.
There's been nothing good since Dress to Kill. Wow, you hung on.
No. Okay, sorry. I misunderstood that. If it's the last good album, then I'm going to say Crazy Nights. That to me is the last good album, because after that, to me, I mean, I don't like Hot in the Shade wasn't good at all, and Revenge is kind of tinted with Bob Ezrin's involvement, although it is a much better record than he ever did with Destroyer and stuff like that. But I don't what
Still got
Crazy
the
Nights
taint.
has. Yeah, but I mean, that's the thing. Crazy Nights has really grown on me over the years. I didn't really like that album as much at all, but over the years it's really grown on me in stature. I mean, especially when I started to hear some of these earlier versions of it that didn't have as much keyboards on and stuff like that. That record could have been a really, really fantastic record if it was approached differently.
Maybe Crazy Nights is a little bit like syphilis. Eventually it makes you go mad and you like it. Okay. All right, let's go back to Lonnie, the last good Kiss album.
I thought about this, but Ken might call me that I've sold out here, but I'm going to say the last good Kiss album was Sonic Boom.
You sold out.
I am not a fan of Monster or the production on Monster. But when Sonic Boom came out, I loved it when it came out. And as time has gone on, I don't love it anymore, but I do consider it a good album. There are a lot of good songs on there. It had been since '98 since they had put out an album. I think, and they went back and kind of, you can listen to some Gene stuff that he really kind of redid some old stuff and tried to and put it out there to try to recreate some an older type vibe or older type Kiss type feeling. I say Sonic Boom is good. I can't put Monster in the category as good, but I definitely can do it for Sonic Boom. I still say it's a good record. It doesn't have this brick wall production that Monster has, and I can't sit here and say Monster's a good album, but I can definitely say it for Sonic Boom that it's a good Kiss record.
Interesting.
Yeah, I can only say Monster has some good moments on it, rather than being a good album.
Good album.
Ken, you gave Lonnie the thumbs up when he was talking.
Yeah, I was surprised. No, I think I agree with Lonnie. Sonic Boom.
Wow, Lonnie's on fire today.
He's got 2 matches today. So Sonic Boom, yeah. I think it is their last, good. Monster falls a little bit below it, so it's kind of like between good and poor. And it's not, now good is good, but it's not very good. So there are very good ones that are not great, of course.
It's solid.
On my scale here.
It's a solid
album. But yeah, it's solid. It has a lot of, like we say, good songs on there. Modern Day Delilah, Say Yeah. And these, Say Yeah, they play in concert, right? Still one of it's the last song or the most recent song that they still use in concert. And then a lot of great Gene stuff on there. And they tried on that one to sound like themselves. They tried to go back to the retro and try to sound, and they sounded kind of like, some of it sounded more like their 80s Kiss to me. at least sound wise. Though they had some '70s riffs in there on that one. So I thought, yeah, that's the last, good. It's a good album. It's not bad. It's not great, but it's right there in the middle. I think that's the most recent one. It was a good attempt.
Yes, I'm gonna agree with you both.
Wow.
Yeah.
3.
Yeah. Again, the production ruins Monster, even though it's got some outstanding songs that I think are better overall than any song on Sonic Boom. But I think Sonic Boom touched on a lot of things. Number one, what makes it good is that it wasn't the last Kiss album. It had erased all the pain of Psycho Circus. I've said that before.
Right.
It had all the little elements. You had things that sounded like something off Asylum, something that sounded like Off the Elder, something that sounded 70s, or an updated riff on something Ace would do. So it was a potpourri of kisstory, sonically. And the attention to detail to the packaging, regardless of how well it looks now, and it not quite having the same panache as Rock and Roll Over. It was still a great effort to make something eye-catching, something different for the band. So, even though it was being sold in Walmart, for better or worse, it was a great experiment. So it's a good
album. The fad at the time. That was the fad at
the
time.
It was totally the fad. And you know what? They probably got a really good deal out of it because they were Kiss. And that Kiss was coming out with the first album in 11 years. So, for better or worse, for whatever it matters, like Ken just said, Say Yeah is still in the set at the end of the road. So it's a good album. There are a couple clunkers on there without a doubt, both one by Paul, one by Gene in particular. But it is a good album. Yeah. So, easy. All right. What was Kiss's first bad album, Mark?
First bad.
Wow, you really have to ask me what I think the first.
I do, because it's a question. The question is written down, and I'm not gonna assume that you're not gonna say something like Hotter Than Hell.
Well, I mean, some people would probably say that. They probably would say the sound of it is terrible and this and that. But to me, it's always going to be Destroyer. Destroyer to me is the first, swing in a complete miss, like fall on the ground, face full of dirt record, So, and like I said, I mean, it's mainly because it's just not Kiss. To me, I like Bob Ezrin on other bands when he did stuff like with Floyd and stuff like that, and with Alice Cooper, I think he does a great job. And I own records that he's produced, believe it or not. So, but with that record, it's just, it took Kiss from somewhere where I was, could you imagine somebody who followed the band from the very, very beginning, like the first album, he gets the first one, Hotter Than Hell, Dressed to Kill, Alive comes out, and then he puts this on, and they're like, what the, like, I know because I've heard my sister tell me many times that was the reaction that her and the people in her friend group said when they heard it. They couldn't believe what they were hearing when they heard this album the first time, It was not what they were expecting. It's not that it's a bad record per se, but it's just not a record that gels with me because I don't like the piano and all these other things. He turned them into something that they just weren't. I think Julian brought up an interesting comment where he said that with Alice Cooper, he took Alice and over time, he brought Alice to a certain point. But with Kiss, he brought them there and like right away. Like there was no build up to that thing. If you would have came in and did something a little bit like maybe introduced the piano first into their music, and then he started adding orchestra stuff and this stuff, then maybe I would have gotten a little bit more into it if I was eased into it. But it was just like a shock to me. I like Detroit Rock City as a song, but I've always loved it live better than I loved it on the studio album because it just to me sounds weak compared to how I hear it live and stuff like that. So that's why I've always said that's a bad record for me.
That's absolutely fair enough. There is no wrong opinion. I'm going to say their first bad album was Love Gun because they went from getting it all right with Eddie on Rock and Roll Over, and then they polished off everything that they had captured and put on some substandard material as well on Love Gun. So strictly for technicalities, and technical reasons, even though it's got some incredible songs. Obviously, Love Gun. Obviously, Christine 16. Obviously, I Stole Your Love. Obviously, oh yeah, Shock Me. Just polishing off everything that you had just managed to capture so perfectly. Shame on you. Lonnie.
Julian makes a good argument for Love Gun. I hadn't thought about it that way, but that, you can name off some great songs on there, but and just like Mike Mark said, there's great songs on Destroyer, but Mark has his reasons why he doesn't care for the album. But I couldn't pick one of the original 6 studio albums as being the first bad Kiss album, because I hold those first 6 studio albums in such high regard. And I couldn't do it. So for me, the first, and it's hard to say what's your first bad Kiss album, because I like every Kiss album to a certain degree. They morphed over time and changed their sound and changed their approach, and I love them all in different ways. And I listen to them some more frequently than others. But for me, going in chronological order, the first bad Kiss album, I'm going to go with Unmasked. I can't say Dynasty because there's a lot of good stuff on Dynasty. But Unmasked is the album that I go in chronological order for me, just really is the first one that really falls short of the mark. Where there were people call Dynasty the disco Kiss album, and it's not. We've talked about that extensively over the years on this show, but for me, they just went too poppy on Unmasked. While there's some great material on Unmasked, we've talked about this too, that had the production been different on Unmasked and stripped down, I think Unmasked could have been a much heavier and much better album. But for me, Unmasked is just too poppy, and I really got to be in a mood to listen to that album from start to finish. Now, I may have a Kiss playlist on with some random stuff from all the eras of the band, and an Unmasked song comes on, and I'm fine with it, and I can listen to it. I don't just immediately hit skip, but I really have to be in a mood just to drop the needle on Unmasked and listen to that from start to finish. I don't know the last time I really did. So it's that one for me, their first bad album, if I have to pick one.
Now, let me ask you something, Lonnie.
Sure.
Vinnie Poncia had produced, obviously, Peter Criss's solo album, which sounds fantastic. And, to me anyway. And yes, I am okay. Yeah. I did take my medicine today. And obviously, Dynasty sounds excellent. Did he just overdo it? Do you think the songs, if they sounded like his production work and the overall band performance on Dynasty, that the material on Unmasked would be any better, or is it the material and the production?
I think it's the production more than anything else. I like a lot of the material on Unmasked. I think there's some real quality stuff on there, but I think it's a combination. Did Vinnie Poncia get too polished? But I think it's a combination of Vinnie Poncia and the band get too polished with that. They saw the commercial success they had with I Was Made for Loving You, which was viewed as more of a pop song and a disco song, for lack of a better word. We've all heard that. But I think they saw the success they had with that and tried to springboard off of that into Unmasked, and it ended up being too much. And they overdid it. Hence why they didn't even tour. It was the first album that they didn't tour America on, because it fell short.
Yeah, you go from X-Ray Eyes to She's So European. Yeah, that kind of sums it up.
Talk to me.
Yeah,
I like She's So European.
Well, yeah, I like it, but come on.
I like it too, but
in terms of character,
I think the song could have been a lot better though. At the same time,
I agree.
Yeah. Okay, Ken. First bad Kiss album.
First of all, two of you touched the
say there's no such thing.
Yeah, not really. Well, yeah. Two you chose classic 6 of the first 6 classic studio albums. Surprising. Well, not so surprising. And most of it seems to be around the 3 so far is about production. is really what killed those three albums to a degree. So, which may be why I picked the one I'm gonna pick. Is I'm going past those, past every one of yours, and I'm going all the way to Hot in the Shade.
Ah.
I think that's the real first bad. That was a good. Come on.
Sold out.
Wait a minute. Love Gun is bad. First bad. I mean, it's good. It's still to me, it's very good. Very good. But anyway, and Destroyer, you know what, Mark? I do agree that those, like Detroit Rock City, I had live too first. I listened to Detroit Rock City live. And then when I finally went back and bought Destroyer and then listened to it, I'm like, why are the guitars so low? In the,
yeah.
That was a problem there. I agree, and that's why a lot of fans at the time were shocked. And the album didn't sell that well. So yeah,
so Mark has validity and I don't. Okay, so moving on.
Yeah, moving on. Anyway, so Hot in the Shade, there's another production kind of thing there. You know, we're talking more demo kind of form stuff. Too many songs. We talked about it. It could have improved it by consolidating down to shorter album and a very good production. You know, some of the songs that are on there are pretty good, but to me it's the first real, you know, I guess we can call it bad album. I guess it's kind of poor album. I'll call it. Yeah, it's a misstep. Or Kiss Step, or what do you want to call it? So yeah, that's my pick for that one. I just think some of the songwriting is not too good on there. There's some definitely throwaways on there. Yeah, it was demos. They just tried to take the cheap way out of things and throw another album out there. So it was not a good decision to do that, but that's the one I picked.
Let me explain myself, because for me, it would have been Crazy Nights, because if I go from when I enter the picture, the first Bad Kiss album was the first new Kiss album for me, you know, so that's why I thought back, and I said, what was a similar situation for the band, going from an album that sounded like Asylum to one that sounded like Crazy Nights, and that has always been an analogy for me between Rock and Roll Over and Love Gun. You know, regardless of, there are some damn fine songs on Crazy Nights as well, but just the sonics of it. Love Gun has Then She Kissed Me on it. I mean, for God's sakes.
True.
You know, you've got Shock Me.
Make it a bad album because it has Then She Kissed Me.
You've got Shock Me, but you've got Then She Kissed Me. Almost Human. True. It's just a lazy rewrite of God of Thunder. I mean, it's cliched. It's like Friday the 13th Part 9. You know,
it's a great song.
It's the Fonz.
Why do you hate Friday the 13th Part 9?
It's the Fonz jumping the shark.
What's funny is no one had even talked about or touched The Elder. And, you know, it's just maybe...
Because it's not a bad Kiss album.
A lot of people would say... A lot of people
would say The Elder.
It's just a bad Kiss album.
Okay,
it's a great album, but not
But it was artistic. And it was different.
I love that album.
It's unique.
And that's why I wouldn't have ever picked it. You know, I do love that.
It's an A for effort. Sometimes you try really hard and you just get the gold star.
It was just the musical direction they went was a bad choice.
Oh, that's also, you're asking what the first one is for you, right?
True. So that was your second one, probably. Then.
Yeah, most likely it would have been. Yeah.
Okay, another Bob Ezrin produced album.
Yeah, just think of the people who were fans in 73, 74, and going through that. And, you know, they go through Destroyer, they get assaulted by the solo albums, they get to Unmasked, and if they survive that, then they got elderfied, you know.
Now, I have one question for you guys. If we have enough time to just have one more little topic to discuss.
Yes, Mark, absolutely, since I do all the talking.
Oh.
Okay, so I'm very, very curious to get your guys' opinion on this, because I have mine on this topic, and I was surprised by my reaction to it, because of late, I was not impressed with many things that Kiss have done. Okay, but I was really surprised with this, and I'm curious about your guys' reaction. So, as you guys know, we're going to be receiving those soundboard recordings soon, the Tokyo 2001, and they released the first song off it that they put on live stream, which is the I Was Made for Loving You. And I listened to it when one of my friends posted me and said, "Hey, it's on here, check it out." So I went and listened to it. I was pleasantly surprised. I really like it. I think that it's raw enough and believable enough of a performance that I really liked it. Sure, it's not perfect. If you listen to it on headphones, you know how Ace used to always say, "I hate playing that song because it hurts my wrist because of that little riff," right? And you can hear it when you listen to it on headphones. He's going like, he's not playing it perfectly at all because of that. And I know he hates playing that, right? But it doesn't bother me. And when I'm listening to Gene's basses thundering, it's loud on there, just like in a Kiss concert. He's really present in the mix, And Eric Singer, fantastic drumming, great drums. And people are saying, "Oh, the vocals are a little far back." But you know what? In Kiss concerts, the vocals are not always blasting up in front on the live performance. It's sometimes settled back a bit in the mix. Overall, I think it's really good. And if the whole album sounds like this, then man, I'm happy that I took a chance and said, "You know what? I'm gonna buy this," and I did. I bought the colored one or whatever it is there. Yeah. And so I'm happy that I did, because if this is the result of what I'm going to be hearing for everything, like that sort of a mix, that kind of feel, that real soundboardy kind of, recording, then I am a happy camper for once, and Kiss has made me happy.
Oh, Lonnie, what's your take?
I am too. I listened to the "I Was Made for Loving You" song on Spotify. I was cleaning up my garage Saturday, and I was like, "Oh, I knew that was out there. Like, I want to listen to that." And I had it on. I'm just like, I was like, "That's really good." Mm-hmm. And Paul's again, the vocals aren't as dominant, but Paul's singing his ass off on that song. Mm-hmm. And I love it. I love his vocals on that song. He sounds so good. So I'm excited. I felt like a 13-year-old Kiss fan listening to that. Like, I can't wait to hear the rest of it. I was really excited, and was, I knew I was excited about this release. Like, oh, they're finally doing something that we've talked about on this show forever. Release some of this stuff, put some of this stuff out there, and they're finally doing it. And then I got a sample of it. I'm like, this is what I'm talking about. This is exactly what I've wanted for a long time. And I hope the Kiss Army eats this up, because I want more of stuff in this vein. I want more of these. We talked about, this is they said, well, they're doing this because it's the 20th anniversary of Kiss playing Tokyo on the farewell tour. Well, give me something from Japan 45 years ago, like we just talked about, in the same vein.
Yeah.
How cool would that be?
Yep. No, I agree. I was thrilled when I heard it. I was like, this sounds good. This sounds so much better than Alive 4, Millennium Concert, or The Last Kiss. Oh my goodness, it sounds good. It's vibrant. It's just tweaked in the right way to sound bombastic. So I agree with you both. If the rest of it sounds as good as that, I'm going to be a happy camper. I got to remember to order the CD. I'm not buying the cow pat looking clear vinyl that looks like it's got a cat sphincter on it. No, because even as a
family show.
Even as a triple record, mine would arrive with a seam split. So I'm not ordering any vinyl. I'm done. I'm so butthurt. There you go. But I'm very excited about it. Ken, your thoughts?
Yeah, I heard it too, a snippet of it, actually. And I thought, yeah, it does sound really, really good. And I Was Made for Loving You live is not one of my favorite songs live, but it sounded real good. And so, yeah, I expect the rest to sound that good. Did I hear that, who produced it? Did Tommy Thayer? Is he producing this album? Or I don't know why I think he is.
Maybe executive producer, maybe?
Maybe it's that. The other question I have for Lonnie, though, is so did you cancel your Target to buy the cat sphincter version?
You don't even know what you're ordering. Actually, I did.
There you go. I was wondering because you're gonna get the black vinyl from Target, but since Kiss had online had the color version, plus they have black. I actually got I got the black and the colored one. I got both.
Wow.
Well, I did say that they should have done white vinyl with a red splotch in the middle, riffing off the Japanese imperial flag. If they could, that would have been a little bit neater. But you know what? It doesn't matter. This is the stuff we've been begging for, so I hope people do support it, whether, getting iTunes digital, Amazon, wherever you get your digital music, but, get the album, buy the LP. Kiss Online has a bunch of bundles because, you can get a T-shirt to go with that, a set of cards and guitar picks and stuff like that. So they are going all out. The Ace Frehley Greatest Hits Live on black vinyl did ship as well, so people got those. There's a nice misprint on the back cover, Stranger in a Strange Land. Oops. That's like one of my books.
Stranger? Oh my god.
I did order the T-shirt with that had the band photo with Eric and Ace on it. It wasn't part of the bundle, but I ordered that shirt because how cool is that to have that lineup on a T-shirt? I mean, I don't own a T-shirt with that lineup on. I mean, only the nerdiest of the nerdy Kiss fans are gonna look at that and go, "Oh, look at that, that's cool." But I'll be damn proud walking around in it, though, even though no one will know what the hell it is.
Yeah, while I'm not interested in the slightest in the merch, I think it's a great idea, and it is kind of quirky and different. So, kudos to Kiss for getting an archival release out, and to do some merch and some packages for people who are interested in that type of thing. And if you want cat sphincter vinyl, you're in luck because
I signed up for it.
Yeah.
All right, Mark, that was a great topic to end on. Thank you. All right, that's it for this week. Who knows what we'll do for the show next week. Mark is busy thinking about the next Look It's Rock and Roll episode and album, so hopefully he will have made his choice so we can start listening to it. Should be another couple of fun episodes coming up soon, both on this show and elsewhere. So for now, from Lonnie, Mark, Ken, and myself, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
It's been a long time since we've rock and rolled, but that all changes this August as Rockin' Pod returns to Nashville. This annual convention brings together rock artists, fans, and podcasters for an unforgettable rock experience. Special guests this year include Billy Sheehan, Ron Keel, Don Jameson of That Metal Show, and current and former members of Winger, LA Guns, Accept, and more. Stage panels, signing sessions, and photo ops will be available, plus lots of vinyl and memorabilia vendors. Music podcasters from all over North America will be appearing on site for live interviews, speaking sessions, networking, and more. Got a music podcast? Register and join us. Rockin' Pod Weekend kicks off with a pre-party featuring former Tesla guitarist Tommy Skio and his new band Resist and Bite, making their debut performance, as well as a rare hair set featuring surprise guests performing all-time classics. Rockin' Pod Weekend takes place August 6th through the 8th in Nashville, Tennessee. Tickets, VIP passes, podcast registration, and discounted hotel rooms are available now at rocknpod.com. Rockin' Pod is brought to you by DBG Productions, Bradley Entertainment, and Inceptia.
Thank you for spending time listening to the KissFAQ podcast today. All sales are final, there are no refunds. If you'd like, look us up on Facebook or come over to the KissFAQ message board and discuss the topic we've broadcast today. Don't forget to rate us on iTunes, Spreaker, or wherever you've listened to the show. We hope you'll join us again.